would just like to first welcome our first class of the Art Vespignani interns, and just say that it was just a genuine pleasure for me to work with each one of you, and I am so proud of all of you and the work that you did for us. And if I could hire you all, I would. During a pandemic, when the world was in such disarray, I never heard any of you ever complain about your situation, your work environment, your school environment, or helping Warwack. Your interest, your energy, and your enthusiasm for our organization was just absolutely remarkable. I'm so glad to have worked with all of you, and I'm so delighted that you are taking the time now to speak to some of our members and to tell us about the work that you did for us. Lastly, I just want to say that having worked and been friends with the late Art Vespignani, I can tell you that he would be proud of all of you, and he would have enjoyed this just as much as me. So without further ado, I thought we would go in alphabetical order. And Yash, we could start with you. Take about 5 to 10 minutes, if that's all right. Just give us a summary of the donor prospect database work that you've been working on, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Just 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. So I just have one slide PowerPoint. Can everyone see?
Yeah.
So being a database intern, I've worked with Allison over these past few months to create a database for potential donors for the Watershed. And so what I've done is I've used this map here which is also on our website at warwack.org. And essentially what I've done is I've used this map and overlaid it with Google Maps to analyze the watershed layout. And by following the water patterns, I've been able to identify houses that live close or near the watershed in the respective counties. And we've divided them into 2 different groups, Group A and Group B, across several different towns. And so my job was essentially to just create an Excel spreadsheet with the name, address, and group name for these potential donors. And we also received assistance from the Morris County clerk for voter registration data, which further helped my responsibilities. And another thing that I did in addition to the donor database data was for our BioBlitz was creating one of our new potential events was the garbage collection fundraising, our virtual cleanup. And so one of the things I facilitated was creating forms for our participants, whether it be for raising donations or collecting data for that aspect. And so working with Allison and working with other watershed communities, we were able to effectively do that. And hopefully that event also goes out. And yeah, that's just a little short summary of what I've been doing over the past couple of months.
So yes, you touched on this, but do you want to just talk about in the database that you created, there's the opportunity for us to personalize the letters because there's different categories that we added. So for example, we can send a letter to someone's first name, and then each group was identified by a particular aspect of the watershed, a region in the watershed. So like, do you want to just talk about the different groups that you created? I think there's a dozen or 10 different watershed groups.
Right. So the watershed groups refer to the towns that we have, but we do have 2 groups in general, Group A and Group B. And among those, we divided the watershed names. So Allison created a wonderful donor letter for us. And what we're able to do is we're able to use the Excel spreadsheet and link that to the letter, which makes it easier to assign donors watershed towns, which makes it easier for us to send out letters on a mass amount, which really helps and raises fundraising money on a faster scale.
Right. So what we did was we now have a database. Warwack never had any sort of database like this. It's a prospect database, and we're going to be tweaking this letter. We have a draft of it. We're going to be tweaking this letter and sending out in the first quarter of next year to get either volunteers or engage them to possibly be donors. But what's interesting is, for example, Troy Brook in Parsippany, we have, say, 100 people there that we've identified around this area. We could say, "Dear John Smith," write the letter and then personalize it with, "In Troy Brook, we can do such and such." So we can tailor the letter a little bit. So that's great. Does anybody have any questions for Yash?
I have a question. So what is the difference between the A group and the B group?
It's just for organization purposes, just to split, because there are a lot of towns in our watershed. So just for organization purposes, we just divided the towns like that.
I see. So like 8 towns, there are 16 towns, right? And
Yeah,
so
and then
8
they're
towns are
divided.
A and A group. Okay, gotcha.
Cynthia, that's a great question. We also looked at the towns that were more active too. So because when we first started out a couple months ago, I wasn't sure how long this effort was going to take. So I said, just start with the towns that have paid their dues. And so we did. And then we started with those towns. And then when we found out because Yaz was working so quickly, we could add all the towns. And so we were able to do that.
The people that you identified, how close to the areas, how many feet, however you want to call it, to
The river?
the area you designated an area that you said we were going to have, say, cleanup or whatever. So how close to that area did you identify houses?
I would say less than 50 feet, maybe. The houses are directly lined up. I'd say 90% of the houses that we have on the donor base are directly lined up or very, very close to the watershed routes.
Okay.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so we discussed in our executive committee about our plan moving forward for the beginning of the quarter next summer to begin using this to solicit the donations and hopefully help our organization along. So tremendous help, Yash. Thanks.
The last thing I just want to add is some of you may remember we went out to try to get this work done by a local marketing research organization, and they wanted to charge us thousands and thousands of dollars. And Len Sipkins and I and a few others put our heads together and said, why can't we just create this using Google Maps and getting an intern? And then John Hoover was able to connect us with the intern program coordinator at FDU, and voila, we got Yash. So we're very grateful for this. So any more questions from the group?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so. Thanks again.
Thank you, Yash. Excellent. Okay, next, we'll go with Brigid Atkins and Simi. Simi, I always have trouble with your last name, sorry. Kalaparamito, sorry.
It's okay.
I just call Simi, and she's been wonderful. And we're so grateful to have this team head up this water quality project. And so Simi, you and Brigid have the floor, and you can talk about the evolution of this project and your accomplishments and the hook that we created to try to engage the environmental community with this possible hook. And the floor is yours.
All right, just gotta share my screen.
So, Simi, how do we say your last name? I don't like how Allison mutilated it.
It's okay. It's Khalil Parambil.
One more time? I'm sorry.
Khalil Parambil.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Nice. Your screen's coming up right now. There it is.
Um, all right, so hi, my name is Simi Clio Parmville. I'm a junior at Fairleigh Dickinson Fairleigh Dickinson University, majoring in biology with minors in psychology and chemistry. And I'm also in the 4+4 program with the Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine.
Hi, I'm Brigid Atkins, and I'm a senior at Morristown-Beard School.
So we both worked on this water quality study, focusing on the conservation of the eastern lamp mussels, and the study was managed and overseen by our wonderful facilitator, Allison Deeb.
So mussels are constantly filtering water as they feed and breathe to help improve the water quality by filtering out algae, pollutants, and different bacteria. So we specifically looked at the eastern lamp mussel because it's considered to be threatened in New Jersey as of late 2002. And from the map, you can see just where the eastern lamp mussel lives along the East Coast. And in New Jersey, it shows that the eastern lamp mussels are imperiled.
Yep, and they typically live in sandy and gravelly substrates of lakes, rivers, streams, and ponds.
So we did the study is we were trying to determine ideal locations in the Whippany River watershed for the eastern lamp mussels to live. So we measured the pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen, salinity using a YSI meter at 13 different locations. So we visited Lake Parsippany, Sunrise Lake, Mountain Lake, Bee Meadow Pond, Speedwell Lake, Troy Brook, Black Brook, the Greystone Watnong, mountain tributaries, the Malpartis Brook, Ford Pond, Lake Pocahontas, Burnham Pond, and Lake Tabor. So we did this study to help conservation efforts aim to increase the population of these mussels. So how we did the study, so we collected 2 to 5 samples at each location, and we took the samples along the perimeter of the bodies of water, and we took the different samples a few feet apart, and this allowed for for us to collect more accurate data because it wasn't just from one spot, it was from a couple spots, so we were able to find the average temperature and the different things that we were testing. So we also found the GPS coordinates at each site just so we can visit the site in the future. And we also took notes on the air temperature, the water transparency, the weather, the types of wildlife, the substrate, and the vegetation around it. We used the USI Pro DS handheld multi-parameter meter, which allowed us to obtain the salinity, the dissolved oxygen, the temperature, and the pH levels. And we also took pictures at each site. So when we were looking for the ideal location for the ideal characteristics that the lamp mussels live in, we had a hard time finding it because there's not much data on it because it's endangered. So we were able to find the optimal water temperature for freshwater mussels, which is between 26 degrees Celsius and 28 degrees Celsius. We also were able to find the ideal salinity level, which was 0.5 ppt or less for the freshwater mussels. And because the eastern lamp mussel is a freshwater mussel, we were able to use this data. And then we found the optimal pH level for zebra mussels, which are very similar to the eastern lamp mussels, and this was between 7.4 and 8. And we also were able to find the desired dissolved oxygen level, which was 5.8 milligrams per liter to 7.9 milligrams per liter. And so we took all the averages of all the data we found for each location, and then we compared it against these ranges to find the ideal location.
So yeah, going off of what Brigid said, we found that averages for each of the 4 factors, and we found that Sunrise Lake met all of the optimal factors for eastern land mussels to live in. So for like the average temperature of the water, it was between 26 to 28 degrees Celsius. Same thing for pH levels, it was between 7.4 to 8, so it's a more basic environment that they like to live in. And for their average dissolved oxygen levels, it was between 5 to 8 milligrams per liter. And for their salinity, it was less than 0.5 ppt. So again, we found that Sunrise Lake, it met all the criteria for being a suitable habitat for the mussels. Their specific average water temperature was 27.28 degrees Celsius. Average DO level was 7.09 milligrams per milliliter. pH was 7.4, and its average salinity was specifically 0.45 parts per thousand ppt. The other locations, they met maybe like a few of these factors, but ultimately they did not meet all of them. So that's why we excluded them from being considered as suitable habitats. And this study was really considered to be a pilot program for the conservation of the eastern land mussels because the data was only taken for a short period of time and only a few samples were taken. So for future studies, a longer study would have to be taken over a longer period of time with multiple samples, and it would have to be more detailed in order to analyze any trends in the data. So for some of our study limitations, we had the samples, they were only taken at the perimeter of each body of water. Ideally for future studies, like using a boat to kind of go out into the middle of the water would be great to obtain more samples to increase the diversity and accuracy of each measurement. And also just kind of going out to the more gravelly or sandy substrate areas, which is where the eastern mussels would most likely be found. And unfortunately, we were unable to observe any mussels while conducting the study. But doing things like having a net to fish for the mussels, or finding other methods to observe them, such as like baiting them with larvae, would be great in order to observe them. And overall, there's just limited data and research on the eastern land mussels. Because they're considered a threatened species throughout the East Coast, specifically in New Jersey. So not much data was taken to determine like the prevalence of them. So that's why we kind of had to base our research more on freshwater mussels in general, or similar mussels like zebra or quagga mussels to determine optimal factors for them. So we'd really like to thank Allison Dee for being a great mentor throughout this process. She really helped guide us and gave a lot of great advice while we were creating the study. And I'd also like to thank my former ecology professor, Dr. James Salerno. He's the ecology professor and biology department chair at Fairleigh Dickinson University. And he provided the YSI meter that we used to collect samples throughout the study. Yeah, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Simi. What a fascinating presentation. And Brigid, I think one of the highlights of this program and project that you guys did was how well you worked together. It was remarkable. Your youthful energy and your intellect and maturity to just work virtually with someone you've never met before and get such accomplishments is amazing. And one thing I'd also like to add is when we were brainstorming this, Simi, you really thought out of the box on how we could make this work. Because if you recall, someone emailed us and said, how can I swim in the Whippany River? And remember, we were talking about, well, how could we do a study that would show that the water is safe for swimming? And then we we brainstormed that and we were talking about that. And then this just sort of evolved due to, I think, someone writing in, someone just an unknown person, anonymous person asking for help. And then your creativity in thinking out of the box. Well, maybe if we tie it and link it with an endangered species, we might be able to get more funding. We might be able to get more traction, and we might be able to get momentum for the project. So, and then I think that just the two of you realizing that time was short and we needed to work on it really was how people do get to work together. When you don't have enough time, you have to make it work. So it was great that you were able to add one location at the end that we had forgotten, which was Burnham Pond. And that was great. And so thank you so much again for this. It was great working with both of you. And does anyone have any questions for Brigid or Simi?
I do, if you don't mind. I appreciate the work you did for us, Brigid and Simi. It sounds like a great starting point for us to understand the evolution of the health of the watershed. Ultimately, is our hope to try to develop these other areas that you tested so they could turn into perfectly adequate areas for the lamp mussel? Or is it the fact that, okay, we know where they could potentially blossom, I guess, not the right word, but anyway, and so we need to focus on Sunrise Lake and start, I don't know if you try to just get more lamp mussels growing there, but I would think the point is to try to evolve the watershed to make it all viable ecosystem for the lamp mussel. Is that true?
Yes, that is. Yeah, I think our goal is to kind of like figure out like what the suitable environment is for the mussels and eventually help to reintroduce them back into those areas. Because they're actually like great indicators of water qualities because they help to filter out like pollutants and things like that. So I think just them not even, we weren't able to observe them. So that's kind of like an indicator that maybe some of these areas based on the water quality, that's why they're not being able to like thrive in those environments. So reintroducing them into those like specific areas is really what our goal is for future studies.
Okay.
Are there any other parameters that should be added to this list? Like organisms or something? I don't know.
So I think definitely like the food sources of the eastern lamp mussels would be great to add. Nitrogen, phosphate levels for water quality are great things to add. Possible predators too of the eastern lamp mussels. I think that's also something that's very important to have as well.
Okay.
Does anyone have any thought about the impact of some of these dammed areas, such as Sunrise Lake is a dammed area versus some of the non-dammed areas, if that matters? Any thought about that?
I have a thought.
Okay.
Well, Sunrise Lake is also maintained by the Park Commission, and some of those other bodies of water that they visited, I can tell you are not maintained at all, and are and I'm sure Brigid and Simi can talk to this even more so, are probably a victim of sediment, a lot of sediment, leaves that then break down. Brad could probably talk about this better than I am, but a lot of leaf sediment breaking down, and that impacts the water quality. So I don't know. That was just my stab at it. Brigid or Simi, do you want to add? Do you have anything to add to that, or? I have a question. So going back to the question about the swimming, right? So Sunrise Lake, you can swim in Sunrise Lake. So, and that is in the Whippany River watershed. But I guess the issue this year was that Sunrise Lake was closed due to COVID, and someone wanted to know if they could swim in one of the tributaries. How does the eastern lamp mussel and the other lamp mussel relate to that question? Or is that a whole other study objective that we would have to look at when we do a larger comprehensive study?
I think it would be a separate question that we'd have to look further into in a separate study.
So I'll chime in on about Mountain Lake. Mountain Lake is, which was not a suitable habitat, is dammed, and it's also very highly managed. And there is swimming in Mountain Lake. There's a lot of swimming in Mountain Lake. So, we in Mountain Lakes consider it to be a very healthy lake. It is very highly managed. We pay a lot to a vendor for that. So, I just wanted to throw that out there.
I'm sure you're constantly sampling and making sure where it is, whereas a native area that's not being managed, you just have no clue what's going on in it.
Yeah.
Before people swim in it, I'm sure you're sampling for health reasons.
It was one of the lakes that was included in the study. So, if there's going to be any follow-on, then we can. I'd be happy to integrate our lake management vendor.
Yeah, the idea was to just get a group for a small focus, to start out with the hope that we could do a comprehensive water quality study for next year. And one of Simi's action items is to follow up with her ecology professor and to find out, because there's grants for this. There's grants so that they can get in a boat safely and take better samples. There's grants that will allow them to cover the whole watershed, 70 miles and safely. And, so to get the kits and also if we wanted to take it to a higher level, to engage a professional firm like the one you're using, and then have the interns work with them, because that's how they will learn. And then you bet they will take this energy back to their own watershed someday and carry it with them. So yes, this is a pilot, a starting point that hopefully will blossom, to use Larry's word, blossom for next year or the year after. Obviously with COVID, we've had a bit of a slower start to it, but at least we've had a start anyway. We have to now find the grantor, but we have an excellent report, and hopefully can take this use it for grants. We have a wonderful report that they put together and beautiful PowerPoint. I just am so elated with the work that you have done here, and it's so important to think about the water, because I can tell you, I have a sick dog this week who drank some of the water, not in our watershed, but in another watershed, and got Giardia. And, there's a lot of waterborne illnesses that you can get from these tributaries that aren't maintained. So that's just one example. And dogs can get very sick from Giardia. They can die if it's not treated. So water quality is so important. At every level of it is important. And you've really helped us visualize this and take it out there. And I just can't thank you enough from the bottom of our Warwack hearts. So, okay, so are there any more questions? Great point, Cynthia. We will be more comprehensive with the next one. And okay, moving on to our marketing intern, As you know, Warwack doesn't have any marketing staff. We don't have designers. We don't have any of that. So we were so grateful to get a graphic design student from FDU, Bianca Rodriguez, with a little bit easier name to pronounce. I'm sorry, Simi. So Bianca, the floor is yours to talk about some of the design projects, but mainly the calendar, which is our first fundraiser for Warwack. So we're very excited to be launching this. The calendar is now for sale. So all of you can get, thanks to Larry, you can go to our website and see the calendar. It's now set for sale by one click away. They were professionally printed, and the art was donated by a local artist. So it's all different watershed scenes. And Bianca's going to talk about the calendar and maybe some of other projects. And then the calendar also, we were grateful to have Brigid customize each photo with some creative environmental thoughts about what the photo was talking about. And I can't tell you how she just created this out of nothing, these great thoughts about what was going on behind the photos, and only a future environmental engineer could do that. So Bianca, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, right now my share button's not working. It's disabled. I have no idea why. So you can't see the photo, but I did write my experience in war.
Let me see something. Let me make you a presenter. Oh, you are a presenter. Try it now.
Yeah, it's not working for me. I don't know why the button's disabled, and I try to go to the system preference, but it's locked and I don't know how to unlock it.
Well, I think one thing I want to say, Bianca, is that we never had any technical problems working with Zoom, and you were always so on time for every meeting and prepared. And the one moment that I thought was great with this project is when you actually decided what we were going to do, when and where, and we didn't really have a plan as to how we were going to put this all together. And after working with you and Brigid and coming up with the plan, all of a sudden the calendar was created and it really flowed beautifully. So we had to move some pictures around. Can everyone hear me okay? Oh, yeah. So we had to move some pictures around and play with it, but that's how good design gets created.
Okay. So I can't really show you the work, so I'm really sorry, but I did write my experience working on Warwack. So again, I apologize. So my name is Bianca Rodriguez. I'm a senior at Fairleigh. So in late July, I accepted an offer for a 3-month interactive design internship with the Whippany River Watershed Action Committee, a nonprofit organization with a mission, which its main mission is to preserve and protect water and the surrounding natural areas. When I got this internship, I was so grateful for this opportunity to work for an amazing organization that cares about our environment and the people in their community. For me, it was an exciting opportunity to produce new ideas and concept alongside Allison Deeb, a creative and caring person whose main focus is on changing the world for the better. As a graphic designer, this internship helped me gain a lot of work experience throughout the projects that we did. We did posters. We did a poster, a flyer, and the biggest one, which was the calendar. And it was a really great experience because I've never done a calendar in my life before. So it was also a learning thing for me. And Allison, who I know is not a graphic designer at all, but she has a great creative mind. So I thank her for that.
First calendar also. So we're in it together. Thanks.
And So she helped me develop important skills such as communication skills, the ability to work well with others, and leadership abilities. I was fortunate to have a patient person in Allison guiding me through it all, was always there for me when I needed guidance. I will.
I didn't ask her to say all this. I really said talk about your projects. I'm embarrassed. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I will forever be thankful to the team at WarRec for taking a chance on me, and hopefully in the near future we could work together again. So thank you.
Thanks, Bianca. I did not pay for these commercials. I'm not running for anything. I assure you, I am out of politics. I'm not running anymore. But so Bianca worked on the kayak poster for us too, which was updated, and also this calendar was probably the biggest project. So the calendar, just to give you all some history, the calendar was Larry's idea, and Larry wanted to create this calendar, and I didn't know how we were going to get it done. Certainly not with my skills. And then all of a sudden Bianca came and we had a graphic designer and we were able to do this. So I hope you'll all go and download, place an order. They make great Christmas gifts. And just so you know, we need to sell 19 to break even. So if everyone buys one, we're there. So thank you, Bianca.
Available on the WearWhack website as we speak, wearwack.org.
So now we have Siva, who is our current outreach chair and has been nominated to be our next chair for next year for WearWhack. So we're very grateful to Siva for all that he's done. And basically, Siva's been the outreach go-to guy. So he's done dozens of presentations to civic organizations for us. So we really need to clone Siva so that we can keep doing our presentations. But Siva is going to share with us some of his photography that he's taken in the watershed. And another quick thing I just want to say before I hand over the floor to Siva is, I should have said this in the beginning. We always meet this in December and we play Watershed Jeopardy. And that game was created because Art Vespignani, who you're all his intern, he was on Jeopardy and he won and was a champion. Not everybody is on Jeopardy is a champion. He was a multiple champion. So I had the pleasure of working with him for 2 years, and we talked about electronifying the Watershed Jeopardy. And so that's on our plate also for next year and beyond, is to come up with a way to do this. So although I may not see some of you ever again, I hope that you will stay in touch with WearWhack with us. We are starting an alumni directory. Normally this meeting is in person. We have pizza, we have dessert, we go out after, and we have fun. And we can't do that, obviously, because of COVID. And I've had a couple of fun nights in our December meetings where I didn't come home right away and my husband was wondering where I was. But so maybe in the future, you'll join us back next December and we can rekindle that. But yeah, this meeting is usually done in person, and so just, of course, we would much rather be doing that, but we don't have that luxury. So next year, please pencil in the first Wednesday of December.
Actually, of every month.
Oh yeah,
Join
you're
us.
always welcome to attend the first Wednesday of every month. If you guys want to join us.
Starting in February, not January.
Yep, starting in February. We have some great speakers planned, and yeah, definitely. All right, without further ado, Siva Janata, you have the floor.
Okay. Screen's
Hello,
moving.
everybody. I'm sure. And can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay.
Looks
Yeah,
great.
As Allison said, I'm currently the Education Outreach Chair, and even though I will be becoming the chair next year, I'm still going to be doing the education outreach duties just the same. But as Allison says, we're trying to recruit people to do it. And so, as part of the education outreach, one of my goals is to try to get people to understand more about the watershed, Whippany River watershed, and make them know that this is their watershed. This is part of what they are. Whether the actual river flows through their neighborhood or not, it's just even the tributaries are there. So as part of that, back in May, I started going to Morristown and Morris Township to take some pictures because I was going to speak to a group in Morristown and Rotary and Morris Plains Rotary. So then I decided, because it's COVID, I needed to get out of the house. So this is my excuse to get out of the house. So from May to October, wherever I was going stir crazy, I just went out to wherever the watershed was and took quick pictures of each of the municipalities. So here's my little picture. I thought I could have music, but you just have my voice. So this is the watershed. This Yash had another picture, but this is a graphic picture of the watershed. And these are all the municipalities that we have, whether in part or in whole. And these are just some of the statistics. The first slides are part of my general discussion when I go out to the outreach with the different groups. But here, the Whippany River actually starts in Mendham Township, and I actually found the source of the river, and that's the lower left-hand picture there. That's the spring that where the Whippany River begins. And there's also two brooks, Harmony Brook, where the Clyde Potts Reservoir is located, and the Dismal Brook. And I like to joke that the Great Swamp the Passaic River has the Great Swamp, we have the Dismal Swamp. And the Dismal Swamp actually starts in Randolph. I mean, so Randolph, most of it's in the Rockaway watershed, but they do share a little bit of Whippany. And Morristown has a huge source. There's Speedwell Lake, Lake Pocahontas as you flow downstream, and Lewis Morris Park. You have Sunrise Lake and Deer Run. And then the local tributaries, and these are some of the local tributaries. And Atno Brook, I actually live nearby, and Miller Brook was where I grew up in the area. So Miller Brook is where my friends and I used to play. So that was my playground. And Patriots Path, the western part of Patriots Path is in Morristown Township. And they have the eastern part of Patriots Path, which goes to past the Washington's headquarters. So you can tell this is taken in October. And Denville has a very small part of it, Silver Brook and North Branch of the Whippany River. And then the North Branch flows into Morris Plains. And Morris Plains has the Watnong and Malaparty brooks. And Hanover has a few at the Whippany Burial Grounds. And this is one of our concerns, is that the storms can harm it. There's some water damage that can be to do there. So that's one of our future projects that we have to look at to protect the burial grounds there. And Madison has the Bellow Woods, which is the source of Black Brook, which flows to Florham Park. And this picture on the right, I'll tell you off-site how I took that, what happened to me after I took that picture. Won't share it with you now, but it was scary, but then at the same time, now it's going to be pretty humorous. And there's Pinch Brook. I mean, one of the funny things about these things is these rivers and brooks and streams just flow by. This was actually taken like behind Trader Joe's, because I went shopping to Trader Joe's and I saw, oh, there's Pinch Brook here. And then I just took the pictures right there. You wouldn't even think about it. And then both the Black Brook and the Whippany join in East Hanover, and this was taken at East Hanover. And then I went to Mountain Lakes. I spoke at Mountain Lakes earlier this year, but I didn't take pictures of it to show them. But this is the western part of Mountain Lakes that are as part of the Whippany River watershed. And this is the eastern part. And Cynthia was familiar with this because Cynthia actually showed me where everything was, and I thank her for that. And these are some of the tributaries that I saw. Google Maps is really nice with this way because you can trace the source of everything. And here's Parsippany, there's Troy Brook. And Troy Brook just flows through. I took pictures at 3 different spots for this. And then the Troy Brook empties into the Whippany River right here. And the Whippany River, the picture on the right, that's when, right before the Whippany flows into the Rockaway River. And the Rockaway River then flows into to Passaic River in East Hanover. And that goes into the Great Peace Meadows, which is right here in Parsippany and into the Passaic River. So that's it. Thank you for letting me share this. How do I get out?
That's great.
And I'm going to try post these pictures up later on, just for people can look. Because I took hundreds of pictures. And I,
Thank you, Siva.
yep. Thanks,
Beautiful
Allison, for
photos.
letting me show you. So I was an intern this year too.
I don't know about you, Siva, but I think that presentation has the foundation of being like our future annual report for 2 years from now, because the pictures are incredible. And
Actually, some of those pictures you're using in this year's annual report.
I think, but if we make the report more the pictures,
Okay, yeah.
that's what brings people in is the beautiful pictures of the environment, not so much like people necessarily, with I think, and also when the pictures are so small, I think Audubon Society talked to us a couple of years ago, and they have amazing annual reports. If you ever have a chance to look at the New Jersey Audubon Society, they spoke to us, and their annual reports are incredible. The photography is incredible. And I think maybe we might want to think about pivoting to a different, to try to adopt their look for the future or the next one, because it's so engaging, because it's just like your presentation. It's all beautiful pictures. So
Yeah, well, I took
what I like about yours too, which we should do, and I'm getting ideas, is you've named all the tributaries, and you're naming all the brooks and the lakes and mountain lakes, and no one knows. One of the questions we get is, what is the Whippany River watershed, and where is it, and what's in it? But if we can get that, we should make the next project should really be naming and the map, and I think we have to get a grant for that.
you remember the presentations that I give to the towns. That's one of the reasons why I took these pictures, is to incorporate into the presentation. So whenever I speak to Morris Plains, I show the Morris Plains pictures. If we ever get to speak to Mendham, we got the pictures from Mendham right there. So they can say, okay, this is part of what we have, and I didn't know that, and because I didn't know that myself. I didn't know.
I think we need a yearbook of our own, our own watershed. And then the other thing you said, Siva, that I think is very important is, we start in Mendham, and there were beautiful pictures of the Clyde Pots, and you started with one of the smaller brooks there. Yeah. And we really need to work on Mendham, because that's the headwaters, and they're not here, and they need to be, although Brigid, you live in Mendham, right? So Brigid is our Mendham member. So Brigid could be appointed and be the first student member, which would be wonderful. We could make that happen next year.
Well, it's funny because Allison, now that you mention that, what I've been thinking at this meeting is I would like to go to our the Mountain Lakes High School Environmental Club and see if I could get a student member excited about WARAC, because one of the things about Mountain Lakes is that by the time the kids are in the high school, they get kind of frustrated. Some of them get frustrated about being in the bubble. And WARAC offers a nice opportunity to get outside the bubble, whether it's, through the Bethami cleanup or the kayaking in Speedwell, or, there are a lot of opportunities to get outside the bubble and get kids excited about environmental things, even though we're in such a highly developed area, showing them that you can do environmental things even in, suburban Morris County. So
Right.
if there are other students in the group, then that helps. What students want to be with a bunch of boring adults all the time. But if there are other students in the group, then it becomes a little more interesting, I think.
How
Well,
terrible is this, kids?
I think our bylaws do say that the towns can appoint 4 members, but rarely in the evolution of WARWAC has each town made those 4 appointments. But one of the appointments is a resident, and it doesn't have to be a staff. It doesn't have to be a planning board or shade tree commissioner or an environmental commissioner, and it doesn't have to be an elected official. So one is just a plain old resident, right? So I think we've talked about this at the bylaws committee meeting, and we have our next one tomorrow if you want to join us. One idea I had was to include, and we've talked about it, was to include a high school rep, because I got started actually a long time ago, not 12 years ago when I first ran for office. And I was appointed to the Whippany River as the volunteer for the town by the other party's mayor. It was very bipartisan. It was actually in high school when I got started, and I was a high school board of ed rep. They don't do that anymore. So we should create high school environmental stewards, or whatever we want to call it, high school
A youth team.
ambassadors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, Larry?
We need a youth team.
Yeah. So Cynthia, we'll be talking tomorrow if you want to join us on the bylaws committee, if you have time around 4:30. If not, it's on our agenda to discuss that.
Allison, could you make a note tomorrow? Just ask me about that.
Sure.
At the kids.
Yes, my experience with a project that we had through Hanover Township.
I do want to say though, the way Brigid and I met, because Bianca, Simi, and Yash are college interns, but actually Brad Turner, who is here tonight on our call, is one of Brigid's environmental high school teachers, and he attended one of our meetings. He saw, well, maybe Brad, you can talk to how you came to that meeting, and then I saw you were new, and I outreached to you, and then all of a sudden we had Brigid as an intern. So things happen very organically, and that's a good thing. But Brad's school is right on the Whippany River, so that's how come that connection is there.
No, I understand, and I'm pretty sure that it was his enthusiasm that that we got Brigid. But like I said, mine was a totally different experience, and I just want to
Sure.
verbalize that.
Okay. So we have a couple more.